3 iron cages have been hanging from a church tower in Münster, Germany, for nearly 500 years. The city has never taken them down. No law requires them to stay. No one has demanded their removal. They simply remain. What did the men inside those cages do that was so catastrophic, so threatening, so utterly beyond the pale, that a prosperous European city decided the only appropriate response was to display their bodies in iron cages, permanently, as a warning to every generation that followed? The answer involves a baker, a tailor, 16 wives, and the complete collapse of a city's grip on reality. The year is 1534. Europe is fracturing. Martin Luther has cracked open the Catholic Church, and forces far beyond his control are rushing through the gap. Among the most radical are the Anabaptists, a movement that rejects infant baptism, rejects private property, rejects the authority of princes and popes alike. To Catholic rulers, they are heretics. To Protestant rulers, they are dangerous extremists. Both sides are hunting them, executing them. And yet, the Anabaptist movement keeps growing. Underground, cell by cell, city by city, because some ideas, once planted, cannot be burned out of people's minds. Into this world steps Jan Matthys, a baker from Haarlem in the Netherlands. Matthys is not a theologian or a scholar. He is a tradesman who has become convinced he is the reincarnation of the Old Testament prophet Elijah. He begins sending letters to Anabaptist communities across Northern Europe. God's kingdom on earth is arriving now. A new Jerusalem must be built, and he has chosen the city. Münster, a prosperous Westphalian city of 15,000 souls, will be remade as God's holy capital. He dispatches his most charismatic lieutenant to prepare the ground. That lieutenant is 25 years old. He is a tailor. He is nobody. For now, the night of February 27th, 1534, armed Anabaptist militants storm Münster City Hall and seize control before dawn. By morning they issue an ultimatum to every man, woman, and child in the city: accept adult rebaptism or leave. Tonight, in the cold, with almost nothing, approximately 2,000 people, Catholic families, Lutheran merchants, elderly men and women, the sick, children, are driven out into freezing winter darkness. They are allowed no time to gather belongings. Many collapse before reaching safety. Contemporary accounts document deaths in the snow. Münster closes its gates behind them and declares itself reborn. Jan Matthys arrives in Münster and moves immediately. All private property is abolished. Confiscated gold, silver, and goods are redistributed through the commune. Books not approved by the new prophets are seized and burned in the marketplace. The city's food stores are brought under communal control. Outside the walls, Bishop Franz von Waldeck, the legitimate ruler of Münster, has assembled an army and begun a siege. Waldeck is no fool. He does not attack. He simply waits. He knows what happens to a sealed city when the food runs out. Inside, Jan Matthys promises the faithful that God will destroy the besiegers. God will not keep that promise. But Matthys does not know that yet. Easter Sunday, April 5th, 1534. Jan Matthys wakes with a vision. God has spoken to him directly. He tells his followers. God commands him to ride out against the bishop's army, alone if necessary, and God will destroy the enemy before his eyes. He rides out through the city gates with a force of 15, perhaps 20 men. The bishop's soldiers are waiting in their thousands. Matthys is killed within minutes. His body is hacked into pieces on the ground. His head is severed, placed on a pike, and raised outside the city walls so that every defender watching from the ramparts can see exactly what happened to the prophet of New Jerusalem. The city is leaderless. The siege is still total, and a 25-year-old tailor is about to step forward. Jan Bokkelsen, tailor, actor, 25 years old, strips naked. He runs through the streets of Münster in silence. For 3 days he speaks to no one, acknowledges no one, eats nothing. The traumatized city watches. On the 4th day, he emerges from his trance and delivers a proclamation. God has spoken to him. God commands the abolition of the existing city council, every law, every structure of authority. All of it gone. Bokkelsen will build something entirely new in its place. The city, exhausted, besieged, its prophet dead, its gates sealed, believes him. Never underestimate what desperate people will accept from someone who speaks with total certainty. July 1534. Jan Bokhelsen crowns himself king of Münster and regent of God on earth. Gold and silver crown jewels are commissioned from metal seized from expelled residents. A throne is installed. A royal court is assembled, courtiers, servants, a wardrobe of fine clothing. The man who arrived in Münster as a traveling tailor less than a year ago now sits on a throne inside a besieged city and issues proclamations in God's name. He issues coins. He stages royal processions through the streets. The bishop's army camps outside. The food supplies are quietly diminishing. But for now, inside the walls of New Jerusalem, the king is magnificent. King Jan issues a new decree. Polygamy is mandatory. All men in Münster must take multiple wives. Refusal is punishable by death. Bokhelsen himself takes 16 wives. The first is Devara, 15 years old, the widow of Jan Mathies, whom he crowns his queen. His law code prescribes the death penalty for 28 separate offenses, including lying, gossiping, complaining, or disobeying a husband. When one wife, Elizabeth von Scherer, publicly argues with him in front of witnesses, Bokhelsen leads her to the marketplace. He beheads her himself. Then, he dances around her body, singing hymns. Contemporary accounts record that the assembled crowd of roughly 200 did not flee. According to witnesses, some reportedly joined in the singing. This is what a city looks like when it has completely lost its mind. Outside the walls, the siege grows stronger. Bishop Franz von Waldeck has done something remarkable. He has united Catholic and Protestant princes, men who elsewhere are mortal theological enemies, into a single coalition against Münster. By late 1534, the blockade is total. No food enters. No one leaves. Inside the city, Bokhelsen continues to stage elaborate religious festivals and royal banquets for himself and his inner court. The population of 15,000 that began this experiment has been shrinking steadily, through flight, through purge, through starvation already beginning at the margins. The siege has been running for 9 months. It shows no sign of ending. Early 1535. The food is gone. All of it. Residents begin eating the city's grass, pulling weeds from between the cobblestones, stripping bark from trees. Shoe leather is boiled and consumed. Mice become precious. Survivor testimonies, recorded by the bishop's chroniclers and by people inside the walls, document what happens next, the eating of the dead. Bodies are dug up. Starvation has reduced a city of 15,000 to a skeleton population too weak to fight and too afraid to surrender. Jan Bokhelsen, the king of New Jerusalem, regent of God on earth, continues to feast. The siege has now lasted over a year. Something has to give. June 24th, 1535. The end comes not from the army outside, but from 2 men inside. Heinrich Gressbeck and a man known only as Hans slip out of the city under cover of darkness. They bring the bishop's soldiers to an unguarded postern gate, a small side entrance that the depleted garrison can no longer watch. The soldiers pour in. By dawn, the siege of Münster is over. 16 months after it began, the city falls in a single night. Searchers moving through the streets and buildings find fewer than 300 people alive inside the walls, from a city that once held 15,000. Jan Bokhelsen is found and captured. January 22nd, 1536. Münster's marketplace. Jan Bokhelsen, his father-in-law Bernd Knipperdoling, and his aide Bernd Krechting are brought before the assembled citizens. For over an hour each, red-hot iron tongs are applied to their bodies, tearing flesh from bone, piece by piece, in full public view. Contemporary accounts note that all 3 men remain silent throughout. Not a word, not a scream that satisfies the crowd. When it is done, what remains of the 3 men is placed into iron cages. The cages are hoisted by chains to the top of St. Lambert's church tower, 150 feet above the street. The bishop has decided this is not a punishment to be forgotten. The cages never came down. Nearly 500 years have passed. Münster is today a peaceful German university city. Bicycles, cafes, students. St. Lambert's Church still stands in the center of the old town. And still, 3 iron cages hang from its tower, swaying slightly in the wind off the Westphalian plain. The bishop meant them as a warning. He got his wish. What happened in Münster between 1534 and 1535 has been studied by historians and political theorists ever since. as a case study in what happens when absolute religious certainty meets the absence of all accountability. The cages are the answer. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. History's Hidden Chapters finds the stories that most people never think to ask about.